Good morning, people of the unknown. Five Nights at Freddy's is a game franchise that has absolutely blown up over the last 9 years. We've had all kinds of games, books, and books released throughout the runtime of this little indie horror game turned franchise. And that's what I want to talk about today. Not the craziness of the Mimic or the return of William Afton yet again. No. I want to create a FNaF theory, or series of them, rather, based on the first game only. A quick note before we start, though. This is my personal theory, or series of them. It's multiple little theories that I thought of, and I haven't heard, any of them before. I'm not plagiarizing, essentially. But in case I am accidentally plagiarizing on anything, I do apologize for that. The only one that I really know of that was a big theory that's here is the phone guy is the killer one, but I have different evidence for it, so anyway. So, with that, let's begin. First, let's establish our characters. We see 5 different animatronics in FNaF 1, and 4 other, human characters. The animatronics include Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, but also the Yellow Bear, most commonly referred to as Golden Freddy nowadays, but referred to in the source code as Yellow Bear, and that's what I'll be calling him in this video. Yell at me in the comments if you feel like it, but that's what I'm doing. The rest of the characters, of course, are the phone guy and Mike Schmidt, but also the murderer and the CEO. The murderer is only referred to in the actual game as a man, but I find that to be a little too vague. We only actually see the 5 animatronics, but we hear Phone Guy's voice, and Mike Schmidt is on the player's paycheck, so we know it's him. The other 2 characters, the CEO and the murderer, are only mentioned in the hidden newspapers, occasionally seen in the restaurant. We, as the audience, know, according to the hidden newspapers, and hinted at by Phone Guy, in his nervous little way, that 5 children, first 2 and then another 3 later on, were killed by a man using a Freddy Fazbear mascot costume. I will note it's never stated which one, just one of them. But the first 2 children were just killed by a man, they could see his face, but the other 3 were killed by a guy in a costume, so that is important to note, but I'm not sure it's super important to the actual story and everything, so let's continue. It's basically confirmed, essentially, that the children were killed and stuffed into the Freddy suits, and it's told that by the newspapers and Phone Guy and such. And it can be extrapolated without much difficulty that the spirits of the dead children now possess the suits that they were stuffed in. This is a common theory among basically anyone who's ever thought about it. So, but anyway. Clearly what the Phone Guy said about the animatronics moving at night, getting a little quirky and stuff, is total bull. And it makes sense that, the dead children would be a bit angry after they were murdered. But why would they attack Mike Schmidt, or the player? Why attack Phone Guy? Instead of them not seeing us as human, as the Phone Guy suggests, which, by the way, makes no sense unless both he and Mike look like skeletons, I think the animatronics attack out of revenge. They want justice for their deaths, or at least to inflict the kind of pain that they endured themselves. And so it would be kind of karma to get stuffed in an animatronic suit, don't you think, after you murdered some kids, and stuffed them into... You get it. But why try to do it twice, to both Phone Guy and Mike? I mean, only one guy killed them. Unless, of course, there were 2 killers. One who lured the kids in the back and then presumably killed them and stuffed them in the suits without, the costume, as the newspapers say. And then one who did use the suit and lured the kids in the back, following on the footsteps of the first guy. Because presumably, the 3 murders happened at least months later. The game takes place in November. June 26th is when the original 2 kids were killed, so it's interesting. But, of course, other than that slight inconsistency there, and it's not really ever mentioned again, I don't have any evidence for there being 2 different killers. so we'll just move on. After the animatronics kill Phone Guy, by the way, they probably killed Phone Guy. My guess is that they're still not at rest, and remaining as poltergeists, essentially, and killing anyone who they are aware of during the night when the children can roam free. Now, who is the murderer? There are several plausible answers to this question, but there are problems with them. Phone Guy is most often suspected as the murderer, and other than being a little too underwhelming of an answer, as he's the only guy that we hear of, he's the only voice in the game, I mean, I can't disagree with that theory. Phone Guy is extremely nervous as we hear him recording calls during his last week at Fazbear's. I mean, hello, and all the stuttering and all, he sounds pretty nervous, especially as the week goes on, which, who wouldn't be, but at the same time, it's a bit suspect. That would also explain why the animatronics want to kill him, if, he killed them. Another thing is a small little detail in the Night 2 phone call that I noticed. As Phone Guy says, so if you can't find something or someone on your cameras, be sure to check the door lights. Someone? The animatronics are someone? It's pretty suspect. Pretty sus. However, I'm not really totally satisfied by this answer. Seems a bit too convenient, if you ask me. So, let's go ahead and explore some more solutions. Mike Schmidt, the player character, could be the killer. Come to check on his victims and make sure no suspicion is placed on the suits that he stuffed the children into, them leaking blood and mucus and having a terrible smell. That might be a bit suspicious, and the police might want to look into that. Though they don't. Sorry, I'm getting on a tangent. He might want to go check on him, make sure nobody's found out. Or maybe he just came back to laugh at what the dead children became. That would be pretty evil of him. It would again make sense why the animatronics tried to kill him, but I mean, the killer was arrested and charged, but eventually let go for lack of evidence. I doubt any company would hire someone as a security guard when they have him on camera, luring and then presumably killing kids in the same location that he's going to be guarding. Though, then again, I mean, I could be wrong. The last suspect that could be considered as of this game is the CEO. This I find to be an interesting angle, and really adds more to the quotes from the CEO in the newspapers, being, "It's, the missing children incident, a tragedy, and these characters will live on. In the hearts of kids, these characters will live on." Sorry for that voice crack, wow. These lines sound so much more insincere, taken in this light. I'll also note that, though it's a bit of a stretch, the Night 5 phone call could be used as evidence to suggest that the CEO, or I guess anyone else, killed the kids and stuffed them in the suits to see if they could create living metal, and therefore were participating in the joy of creative service, If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's really not that important. It's a little Easter egg in the Night 5 phone call, but it's really not important. And with that, let's move on to the next segment of this super theory, I guess, series of theories. That's fun. Okay, here's the biggest theory of them all, and sort of what started off the whole Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. Who is Yellow Bear? I know. That's a pretty big deal to cover in a FNaF 1 theory video, but I'm gonna try it anyway. I'm gonna try it. I actually have 3 theories for who could be Yellow Bear. Mike Schmidt could be Yellow Bear, and It's Me is calling out to what he later becomes in the future, or a shell of himself right now. He's just in a nightmare or something and imagining it, hallucinating, something like that. Maybe Yellow Bear is the suit he used to kill the children if Schmidt happens to be, the murderer. Of course, this is an issue considering 5 children went missing total and were stuffed into the suits, and 5 suits are acting up in the pizzeria, including Yellow Bear, who is presumably actually there, so this seems unlikely. Next, Phone Guy could be Yellow Bear, trying to reach out and identify himself through "It's me," as Phone Guy was presumably killed and stuffed into a Freddy suit in the Night 4 phone call. He did get jump scared, presumably by Foxy. Some people say it's Yellow Bear, but... And he did say earlier that, I think on the Night 1 phone call, that the animatronics would stuff you into a Freddy suit if they caught you, so... Yellow Bear does kinda count as a Freddy, and he's just a recolor, so... But then again, of course, the Phone Guy is not a child. He's clearly a man, and thus we have the same issue as with Mike. The last and most obvious theory that I have about who could be Yellow Bear is the fifth child to be killed by the murderer, and that is pretty obvious and pretty lame, I know, but, you know, it's the most likely. Though we don't see or hear anything about him specifically, that being, you know, Yellow Bear, one of the newspapers notes that 5 children have gone missing, and there are 5 animatronics that we see in the game, so it's not unreasonable to assume that the 5th child is inside Yellow Bear. This is what most people assume, and I don't disagree with the viewpoint, though I wish something else was the answer, because I think that would be a little more, like, entertaining and fun and everything, you know. And that, my dear friends, was the last part of this FNaF 1 series of theories, which is still fun to say. This video was an absolute blast to make, revisiting old trailers and lore, really diving deep into it, and takes me way back to when I first got into FNaF. What do you think is the story of FNaF 1? Who do you think Murderer is, and Yellow Bear? And leave a comment down below telling me your theories. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.